crap. Good afternoon, friends. I'd like to welcome you today to What's in Tegan's Storage Locker. It's the show that dares to ask the question, just what is in my storage locker? The answer today, as always, is comic books. I pick up a stash of comic books from somewhere or another. We flip through them. Sometimes we get through 5 or 6. Last time we got through 3, which they were all very nice looking comic books. But I want to get through a couple more comics than that. All right, so what do we got here? Let's start off with an issue of the Heckler. What, you may ask, is the Heckler? Well, the Heckler lasted 7 issues in 1992. That's how poorly it sold. It couldn't get 7 issues in 1992. People did not take to this book. I don't think this character is I don't think he's a creator participation character. I just don't think anyone's ever used this character before, or since, rather. But man, it was funny. It was a very funny series. And it's Keith Giffen, although he's being inked here. So this is a very classic looking Giffen, but he's just on the precipice of the leap, the breakthrough he takes with his trencher material and the other material from that era. And, he doesn't keep that trencher style for very long, but he's never the same after it. Very, very important run of comics for him. So, well, it's a Keith Giffen story, so the title is The Coming of the Four Mopeds of the Apocalypse. So we got a witch person looking at tarot cards, still alive retirement village. Talking about pigeons and the first portent, pigeons are exploding in Drooler's Park. Oh, so apparently it's just this, one of the horsemen of the apocalypse is just sort of hanging around a retirement village, and he gets the call. And this guy, I don't know which one he is. Here we go. Well, sometimes you run across something like that just makes you wonder. It was everywhere, this type of stuff. So the large woman eats an Oreo and I guess is transformed into famine or something. Oh, there's a dominatrix involved. See, it's very much a Keith Giffen comic book. Oh, and here's Death, looking very much like an Image Comics character, covered in chains. Tonight, the four mopeds of the apocalypse ride again. No idea what's... See, I'm not going to stop and read the comic. Maybe we can get through more than a couple comics today. If I stop and read everything... Never make it. So, just perfect. I mean, you could teach a class based on how this man draws a comic book. Completely, it's a very funny comic book, but in many ways a completely unexceptional Keith Giffen comic, except for the fact that an unexceptional Keith Giffen comic was head and shoulders above just about anyone else. Oh, there's an ad for a Final Fantasy game, I think. Does that say? No, Mystic Quest. They must have printed too many because they're selling it for $39.99. Here's a book that I don't think I've ever read an issue of this, but these were really interesting ads. Maybe if I see it in a quarter box one of these days, I'll go for it. Tom Joyner and Keith Wilson. Art by Jim Fern. That is an interesting name. Not one you see very often. So it's various Keith Giffen hijinks. You're in the land of the 9-panel grid, partner. Dance in your pants. And here's some sort of scarecrow person. I don't think it's the scarecrow, but... So Heckler's this dude. I don't remember his non-superhero name. He basically, if I recall the hook for this, at least what Keith Giffen described in interviews, I think it was an attempt to do Bugs Bunny as a superhero. Like, seriously, that was the point of the character, and no one had an appetite for that at all. And they didn't even bring this guy back for the New 52. Although the New 52 had Giffen's OMAC, which is an absolutely excellent book. Ignore the name of the writer on it. Just pay attention to the art on that one. Anything Giffen did, though. He never drew a bad comic book. Even comic books that he very clearly drew in about a weekend still look fantastic. So he's just fighting this guy, making, bad quips. Gee, Grassbag, I didn't know you cared. Sorry, Straw Man. You've been a good sport and a lovely contestant here on True Compressions. See, it's very Bugs Bunny type stuff. Michael Netzer, Scott Hanna, and Chuck Dixon. Michael Netzer, interesting choice for Batman. Man, it looks nice. It just looks very nice. And if you take the time to read it, it's usually pretty funny, too. Although there's maybe... When I pick up old Keith Giffen, every now and again there is the occasional plot line that just doesn't land the same way 30 years later. And that's just life, That's just how this works. We take a note of it and we move on with our lives. And there's a Pestilences in a cheerleader costume. I like the coloring. Who colored this? Tom McCraw. That's really nice looking color holds for these mystic effects. Oh, don't you start running around. That is a huge subscription ad for DC. I don't know how long. Some of these... See, a lot of these actually lasted longer than you might think. Like 90s Star Trek The Next Generation ran forever. The Spectre, that had a very long run. Black Canary, this series was not long for this world. Dark Stars. Hawkworld, I don't think was lasting for too much longer. Legion 93, that was about to be canceled in about a year. Black Condor. Eclipso, it lasted 18. Giffen wrote that, and in the other Giffen mood, not the funny Giffen. It was a real violent series. The Heckler, they put the Heckler on the subscription form. They could have used that ink better. Peter Cannon Thunderbolt. Did anyone read that? If you read Peter Cannon Thunderbolt, speak up in the comments so I can have, oh wow. Flying Buttress. There we go. That's something. That's something, all right. Looks like these are... Everyone's writing in with... Or maybe they wrote this themselves. I don't know. Everyone's writing in with fake names. Oh, no. Some of these are real. Some of these are real. So... Excellent, excellent stuff. And I can't imagine, even in this day and age, that anyone would charge you more than 50 cents for an issue of the Heckler. I like the series. What do we got next? Oh, here's something fun. Here's something fun. How about let's look at Marvel Tales 279. This is... reprinting what was, at that point, not that old of a comic book. This was 93, and this was reprinting late 80s Spider-Man with, this is the Tom DeFalco, Ron Frenz run, which was a very solid run of Spider-Man comic books. This is how I read most of it. And this is a very famous, in some corners, infamous story arc from this run of the title. Now, we looked at some Tom DeFalco and Ron Frenz a while back. We looked at a couple issues of their Thor. And maybe we'll look at some more issues of their Thor again someday. I really like their run of Thor. I think I also mentioned at the time that I didn't rate Frenz's run on Spider-Man as highly. And I don't. I think it's still a very formative work for him. What are you doing? Well, I just had to go play with him with the Crinkle Rat for a few minutes. He's had the Crinkle Rat for over a year, and he never showed any interest in it until literally the last couple of days. Suddenly, he's all about the Crinkle Rat. I don't understand. I don't understand how cats' minds work. So anyway, these aren't bad comics by any means. This is a cover by Ron Lim. He was doing the covers for this run. And, Ron Lim drew a fair amount of Spider-Man. I don't know. He wasn't one of my favorite Spider-Man guys, but he ended up drawing. He drew Spider-Man Unlimited. That was the quarterly Spider-Man title. So he did some fairly lengthy Spider-Man stories. Just wasn't my favorite guy for the character. Much prefer him on certainly Captain America, but Silver Surfer especially. So, and it's Spider-Man in his black costume. All right, so I alluded to the fact that this is something of a notorious story. And the reason for that is I have seen Marvel editors actually get kind of testy about this online. What actually happens in this story is that over the course of 2 issues, we see Silver Surfer get into a brawl with Firelord, and somehow over the course of the 2 issues, he comes out on top. And you may be thinking, well, it's Spider-Man, of course he'll come out on top. But if you know who this guy is, you know that he's not as powerful as the Silver Surfer. They have gone out of their way to specify, like, Galactus stopped making them that powerful. But he still has a considerable amount of power. He was a herald of Galactus. So he's not someone necessarily in Spider-Man's weight class at all in any way. Now, the thing is, Spider-Man does win fights against much stronger foes all the time. It's kind of a staple of his character. So the question is, can Spider-Man, does he beat Firelord fair and square? Thing is, this was written by Tom DeFalco. Tom DeFalco's a big Spider-Man guy. He's not someone who would have made the decision lightly. He's someone who's thought a great deal about the character of Spider-Man, written many Spider-Man comic books over the years, is upfront about his enthusiasm as a Spider-Man fan. So it's not something he did lightly. But I'm still of 2 minds about it myself. I can see both sides of the argument, and the story itself makes a convincing argument for itself. It's a fun story in any event, if you don't care whether or not it's preposterous. Joe Rubinstein doing the finishing here. I don't always like Joe Rubinstein on everyone, but I like him on Frenz. He gave a necessary texture to a guy who isn't a texture guy at all. That's never been his thing. But he works well with inkers who have a lot of texture in their style. He's a good canvas for them. Bram Stoker's Dracula for the NES. I don't know if I ever played that. So, Firelord, he's coming to Earth. If I recall correctly, he was spending a lot of time on Earth at the time because he was, I want to say, tracking down Nebula. So that meant in and out of the Avengers books periodically, if I recall correctly. So we start off with a very cosmic couple of pages. He's going to get hit by an asteroid, and then he just smashes it with his staff. And he's going to Earth. He's doing something. Oh, and he's coming here just to rest. He says, a most fitting place for me to rest while I contemplate my next destination. Well, let's see how that rest and relaxation goes. Oh, and here's a reference to the Dazzler, the movie, and the events of the Dazzler being outed as a mutant. Here's our boy Peter, chilling with all the senior citizens, because he can't get people his own age to hang out with him, even in his late 20s. Here's a footnote for the Secret Wars crossover. Has the Beyonder returned? Yep, and if you haven't taught him to go to the bathroom yet, you're going to very soon. What is this? Oh, this is a Milton Bradley game. Looked like it had a lot of pieces to it. Talking electronic game. Well, that probably broke in a couple months if he ever actually played it. Oh, so he stops off at Tony's Pizza. So he stops in. So, oh, he wants a pizza. He wants a piece of pizza. So he stops into the pizza shop. He breaks the window to get in. He's like, give me some pizza. I saw your billboard. He's like, we're not making pizza right now. He says it's the breakfast rush. We don't cook pizza for breakfast, but apparently I would have to fire up the ovens to even begin. So he destroys the oven with his fire vision. This guy sees what's going on. He doesn't like it. So he runs out to get help. They're like, yeah, some guy's messing with Tony's. Tony's? So all the construction guys grab their tools. What are you doing? You can sit in that box. That's allowed. So these events transpire unbeknownst to our friend Peter Parker. Now, he doesn't have the alien costume anymore, but this is still the period where he's wearing both costumes, more or less indiscriminately. In the story, it's explained due to laundry. That's why he goes back to wearing a copy of the black costume, because the other costume was filthy. It's Spider-Man. You pay attention to stuff like laundry in Spider-Man stories. But, I was always a fan of the black costume. I love the black costume. The classic version of the black costume, which is jet black, no highlights, nothing. Just absolutely perfect looking superhero costume. In fact, you don't even need to do the highlights. Just do all black. It's a very nice looking costume. People used to hate it because some people hated that they replaced Spider-Man's costume. And now you can look back and see, well, they don't use it all the time now. So it makes a lot more sense. It's a really cool thing that they can pull out every now and again. But at the time, people just wanted the old thing back. So they rush in with a fire hose, hit him with a fire hose. Spider-Man walks, he's taking care of these firestorm. He just knocked all these construction workers out of the building. This guy's still fighting. Spider-Man saves his life. See, it's action. This is what you get with Ron Frenz. Even back then, absolutely impeccable, peerless action storytelling. His Spider-Man is still him working through the John Buscema that was so strong in his early material. And it takes him a while to grow out of the Buscema. And working with Sinnott, I think, is a very important part of that. Working with Al Williamson later on in his career, I think. He also, that also was a very informative experience for him. But, Rubinstein looks very good. Rubinstein isn't necessarily one to challenge the people he works with, though. He's very complimentary. So, good thing Spider-Man just happened to find a derelict building that was condemned and ready to be blown up. So he stole Fire Lord's staff, which, I guess it isn't like his board, the Silver's board. He can't just make it come back to him when he wants to. But now he realizes he got this guy angry and he's got to deal with it. Oh, that's a nice panel. A long shot of them just ramming through the building. Him ramming through the building. This is ridiculous. Nothing's going to stop that guy. All I'm doing is helping him demolish the city. I am not a peaceful man by nature. My instinct is to fight when wronged. And I have been cruelly used this day. I will have vengeance if I must tear this entire world apart. Vengeance! We'll come back to that. Here's an ad for the X-Men VHS tapes. And man, they sold a fair amount of these because this show was hot. They could sell single episodes on VHS tapes. $10. That's how hot it was. So, he's running around. He throws it in the drink. He heads over to the Fantastic Four. So now he's swinging away thinking, well, I got to call someone else. I got to call the Avengers. I got to call the Fantastic Four. Oh no, how could I have been so stupid? In all the excitement, I forgot that someone had completely trashed Fantastic Four headquarters a few weeks back. That happened in issue 278. What am I going to do? I haven't the slightest idea how to get in touch with the Fantastic Four now. Oh, so there you go. He doesn't have any choice in the matter. Oh, and he finds a picture of Uncle Ben falling out his wallet at just the right time. He realizes, no, I can't. This isn't someone else's responsibility. This is my responsibility. I'm going to go fight that guy. I'm going to hit that guy with everything I've got. Win or lose, he's going to know he's been in a fight. One heck of a fight. And that's the original cover. Which do you prefer? You know, I do like the Ron Lim one for that. Ooh, Quaker Oatmeal Kids' Choice. Strawberries and stuff. Back when you could just sell children's food that had stuff in it. And people would get excited about it. All right, so we're oh man, look at how fat. Look at how big that is. Although here's a few Marvel UK titles. Cyberspace 3000, I'd be surprised if that made a year. Tech World. Tech World actually lasted a couple years, believe it or not. Might have sold fairly well on the newsstand. Biker Mice from Mars, that couldn't have lasted a whole year. The Barkerverse books, yeah, they're putting out too many books. Law Dog, that was an epic book. They were still launching a couple they launched a couple ongoing Hellraiser spin-offs in 1993. Gru's still holding it down. My God. Okay. So maybe we'll look at the second issue of that one of these days. How we doing? We're making great time. All right. Let's read some Spawn. People like it when I read Spawn. Videos where I read Spawn seem to do pretty well. So, I'm nothing if not an absolute pander bear. Tell your friends, go to the Patreon. We need to grow the channel. All right. So this is 80th. God, I was buying Spawn way too late. Brian Hogan has already moved in as the plot and story guy. Greg Capullo and Danny Miki. Excellent top shelf team. I mean, if anything, that's probably why I was still buying it, because I was a Greg Capullo fan. You know, his Quasar, I rate his Quasar higher than just about anything else. I really like that run of comics. And his X-Force was pretty good, too. I don't rate his X-Force as highly as his Quasar, but I recognize that I'm not in the mainstream on that opinion. But, you know. And then he moved to Image, and he drew like Todd for years, and he picked up a lot of Todd. And to be fair, Todd picked up a lot of Capullo. You know, not like Todd pencils a lot of comics on his own these days, but when you do see a piece of his, you see Capullo. Oh, so here's all sorts of various unwholesome Spawn type things. Lunch lady poisons the class. Some dude jumps off a bridge. A guy shoots himself and everyone else in the elevator. Oh, jeez. And there's Billy Kincaid. I want to say my memory is that we flipped through another issue of Spawn with Billy Kincaid in it not that long ago. Oh, there's a picture of Todd McFarlane. Oh, they're talking about, oh my God. They're having a joke to talk about the baseball. $3 million, $3 million freaking dollars for a goddamn baseball. Can you believe it? You and me put together are worth less than one stitch on that sucker. Oh, and get this. He's from Canada. Crown jewel of America's pasta time. Bought by some nutty foreigner. Goddamn NAFTA. This is fun. Wow. I hardly think it's a fair trade issue, sir. Look here. It says he's putting the baseball on tour and donating the proceeds to charity. Yeah, right. Bet his PR agent made that up to him to look good. Look at this clown. What a tool. Man, I hate rich people. Man, you know, when Todd McFarlane goes meta, he goes all the way. You know, he really does. There are a lot of Todd McFarlane. You know, he's written just about everything, at least co-written or plotted. Had some say in just about every Spawn comic that's ever been made. There's a lot of Todd McFarlane comic books out there. You know, I wish he'd drawn more. I really do. Nothing against Greg Capullo and Danny Miki. I like, you know, Danny Miki is someone who I've really grown to appreciate in later years. And the funny thing is, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again, Danny Miki's controversial. When I mention Danny Miki, there are a lot of people who do not like his work. And that tells me that for an inker in the 21st century to still be divisive is interesting. That's not something you see every day. He's doing something interesting. And, you know, he's picking up one step, you know, from Scott Williams, one step from McFarlane himself. You know, McFarlane did a lot of work in finished ink. He was pretty influential on a lot of inkers who came after him. And Danny Miki certainly still has a little bit of Todd in everything he inks. So he's this cop. Oh, this is Jason Wynn. This is the bad guy. This is the bad guy. Spawn, he's got so many characters. So many characters. Jason Wynn, he's the crooked government dude. As opposed to the crooked mob dude. Lots of crooked dudes. Basically, like no one good hangs out anywhere near Spawn because he has a chair of literal refuse, like animal bones and what looks to be like human waste. It's just absolutely disgusting. And he's holding a skull, so it's all literary. So, someone driving through town on a horse with an axe? Oh, and people are just getting shot random. Just, man, this is Spawn. You know it's twisted stuff. And that's what I don't get when I pick up Spawn nowadays. I don't get that sense of, and, you know, you can say, you can have your own opinion whether or not it's good. But it was certainly an aesthetic. It was certainly a definite decision to get up in the morning every day and try to do something really, really sick and twisted. And you can say, like, well, you know, he was maybe trying a little bit too hard, or, you know, early edgelord stuff. All that stuff probably is true. But I don't get that same joie de vivre. You know, here's just a barbarian dude pulling people's hearts out of their bodies. Arson. Is Billy Kincaid doing this as a ghost or something? Sam and Twitch. This was probably, if I recall correctly, around the time that Brian Michael Bendis had his big run on Sam and Twitch. Not really remembered, but it was very important in terms of him moving on from doing image stuff. Todd saw something in the guy. Spawn, we need to talk. Oh my God. Is it even a Spawn comic book if some dude isn't like emerging from the darkened alleyway to say, Spawn, we need to talk? Of course, someone always needs to talk to Spawn. That's all he does, is sit around on his pile of like refuse. There's a doggy. Wait, they end with the talking heads? Wow. That's Todd McFarlane. He's going to end. His last page, cliffhanger, is these. And, you know, in hindsight, this was so ahead of its time. And it's funny, but man, look at the X books. Look at all their text pages. He was doing it. He was putting text pages right in the middle of his stories all that time. I mean, it's crazy because people made so much fun of him for doing the talking heads at the time. Now everyone does them. Well, not everyone, but, you know, many people have adopted similar stylistic strategies to disseminate exposition. Spawning Ground. Let's see. Do I recognize any of these names? Oh, Paul Shoemaker, age 14, your biggest fan. There you go. And, you know, I've said it before. I didn't appreciate at the time just how much Todd McFarlane was in touch with his fans. In hindsight, you look back at the 90s, look back at what he did in the moves he made, and it's absolutely blinding. It's right there. He was responding directly to what his fans said he wanted. And that was his power on Spider-Man, and that was his power on Spawn. And that's why he wanted to be his own boss. And he proved, you know, if you actually listened to what the people wanted and gave it to them, they could make you fairly rich enough to buy, you know, weirdo baseballs. Yeah, there we go again. Oh, and he was already branching out into the media tie-ins. It is so weird to me that Todd McFarlane just does the DC toys now. The DC toys. He has the whole DC license. He was the upstart, the toy punk in the 90s, and now he's the establishment. And I'll bet you his joints are still just the flimsiest damn thing. I mean, don't get me wrong. They were nice-looking toys. I bought a few. I bought my mother one of his dragons. He did a line of dragons, and I bought my mother, I think, a couple of those. She really liked dragons, and she really liked Todd McFarlane. And she cherished those things. But they fell apart. The wings just broke off if you held it in your hand. And now he's doing, I hope his joints don't do that anymore. Oh, wow. McFarlane Toys was already doing these nice upscale dioramas. This was the time when the dioramas and the statues were starting to get really popular. Oh, Spawn the Undead. And this is where Dwayne Turner went after Curse of the Spawn with Paul Jenkins. So that was Paul Jenkins. I don't know if it was after or whether he was still on Hellblazer at the time. But that was really the book that made his name as anyone, his Hellblazer. Then he did Hulk, but he did Spawn too, apparently. Curse of the Spawn, trade paperback #1. One of the most intriguing Spawn sagas ever. One of the most gorgeous Spawn stories, I'll say. Spawn Annual #1. Oh, I wish I'd got this. Paul Jenkins and Ashley Wood. I don't think I got that at the time. I was really like, I'm always surprised by how long I kept buying Spawn. But in hindsight, I wasn't buying the right Spawn books because I bought the whole run of Curse of Spawn because it's gorgeous. But I tapped out for Spawn the Undead, and I wish I hadn't. I wish I had that Dwayne Turner work. Likewise, I wish I had this Ashley Wood work. I don't necessarily care too much about the missing out on the Kiss books. But he made a lot of money. People came out, because this is a reprint. This is a 56-page, full-color pages of Kiss Psycho Circus, including books 4 and 5 of the comic book, part 2 of the Gene Simmons interview. And here's the Family Values Tour. I wanted to go. Of course, in hindsight, I don't know. Am I glad I didn't make it to the Family Values Tour? My friend and I really wanted to go. I think there was something else we had to do. Because, you know, sort of into Korn, not into Limp Bizkit. Could tolerate Orgy. Rammstein and Ice Cube, of course, nowadays. Man, life comes at you. And this show was still riding high. This show was so popular. You have no idea how hard this show hit with people who would never have picked up a comic in their lives. But because this was on HBO, it's not TV. It's HBO. Back when the only original content they did was really edgy stuff, because I think this ran at the same time as Oz, you know. So that was a whole thing. They need to do more Spawn. The show, it was Spawn. If you don't like Spawn, and I guess on some level I do still kind of have some affection for the guy, and that was a very good Very good version of the character. Speaking of nice-looking comic books, let's look at a Moon Knight. Now, the other day on the TikTok channel, we looked at the first issue of Bill Sienkiewicz's, well, not the first issue of Moon Knight that Bill Sienkiewicz drew, the first issue of the Moon Knight comic book that was also drawn by Bill Sienkiewicz, who had been drawing the character for a little while before that. But even by, the first issue of Moon Knight, he's still very much in the Neil Adams mold. By issue 28 of Moon Knight, towards the end of the run, he's only got 2 issues left. He's something else entirely. And I've put this comic, I've nominated this comic in the past. This specific comic, one of the most beautiful comics Marvel has ever published. This specific issue. And you'll see why when I flip the page. You'll see why when I flip the page here. Are you ready for me to flip the page past this excellent cover by Sienkiewicz? Look at that. Look at that. Doug Moench writing, just like he wrote the issue of Batman that we looked at on the last episode. Bill Sienkiewicz artist. Christy Shield colorist. These colors, do not underestimate how nice these colors looked on these books at the time. Because if you read these books now, if you see the recoloring they've done, the digital coloring, man, it's enough to make you break down and cry, I tell you what. Because the original stories look so good. And they're finally starting to come around on that. There have been some reprints recently that have looked very much like the original color. They're maybe getting out of the mindset that it's always a good idea. Certainly with the Bill Sienkiewicz Moon Knight, like touching anything on these pages is just, it's heresy. Epic Comics is coming. Jim Starlin's Dreadstar, who you would have known if you were reading the Epic Illustrated magazine at the time. I have some old issues of that. I don't have a full run by any means. Maybe we'll pull some of that out one of these days. All right. See what I mean, though? Moon Knight, you pull out, see he's fighting this dude in the shadow of this fountain. Oh, my goodness. Frenz. Bill Sienkiewicz, he would go on to be one, maybe the premier stylist of his generation. And he would certainly get better. But man, just in terms of already having it dialed down, how to make an attractive looking comic book page. Because this is just 3 pages of Moon Knight fighting with some schmoes. Nobodies. And look at how gorgeous, oh man, look at how gorgeous his Arlene is. I gotta say, I really like this version of the character. Anything later than this, I think, and I sound like an old person, anything later than like 1982. But yeah, Moon Knight hasn't been quite as good since this first run with Doug Moench and Bill Sienkiewicz. And I like Moon Knight stories that I've read since. I like the Dave Finch run. I think the Dave Finch run is some very nice looking comic books. Not a patch on the Bill Sienkiewicz. James Fry drew some nice looking Moon Knight. But it just doesn't get better than Bill Sienkiewicz drawing. I mean, this is just oh man. And so he goes to, where is he? Sudan. Oh, he's in Sudan. So and Sudan, I just mentioned that I read the first issue of his comic the other day from this series. And that actually takes place in the Horn of Africa as well, because that's where basically he made his bones as a mercenary in his origin. And, the sad thing is that it's still a war-torn place. There are still mercenary forces occupying large parts of that country. So it's disappointingly relevant as far as that goes. But, you know, he has a near-death experience. He's not that person anymore, and he spends his time fighting people like he used to be. Oh, so this guy, I don't know, this guy's missing teeth. He's kind of a... Oh, so he burst through the door because, oh, so this guy is about to menace Marlene. Oh, don't menace Marlene. Well, there's a very classic Neil Adams pose right there. He didn't, you know, he never completely, an influence that strong, you never completely drop. Still to this day, sometimes you see a little bit of the old Neil Adams pop up. But there are worse artists to grow up emulating. But just, oh man, him walking through the snow, just sand. Not a lot of snow in Sudan. This is right before he did the Dune movie adaptation, which has never been reprinted. And it's just, Marlene, you're not wearing any clothing. I guess she got kidnapped with no clothes on. That's the type of stuff that happens when you're in a superhero comic book. Oh. But I liked his relationship with Marlene. She wasn't like a... she was kind of a different character. Disapproving of much of Moon Knight's behavior. But a very adult relationship for all that. Two, you know, grown-up people who express their disappointment with each other. Where are they? Are they in some... Oh, they're in some tomb. Oh, it's the tomb. So he's back at the tomb where it all started for him, and he's fighting someone or another. I don't remember who the villain is in this one. I just know that this book is... Ooh. And he winds up back in a statue of Khonshu. And I think they were oh man, look at this chiaroscuro here. My good Lord. It does not get better than this, folks. It just doesn't. It just does not. Because he can be illustrative, but he can also pull out to dominate with these massive spotted blacks. Just shadows being... Although this statue isn't reflecting that light source. That's kind of an interesting choice. Well, maybe a little bit. I don't know. Oh, my goodness. If there's any run of comic books in this world, I recommend it. It's the Doug Moench, Bill Sienkiewicz, Moon Knight. They did 30 issues of the series, and they did a few issues before that, and a few anthologies. They did the backups for the Hulk magazine. But man, if you can, pick them out of the back issue bins. Get the real coloring. If you want to, and you know, I use Marvel Unlimited. Marvel Unlimited has its place. But for older books, you got to recognize you're getting an inferior product in terms of the coloring. If you can get the originals, it is absolutely 100% by far preferable in almost every case for anything before the turn of the century. At that point, the coloring becomes all digital anyway, so it doesn't make that much difference. But before then, my God, look at that. And 5,000 miles away in the moon-washed gloom of a mansion foyer, a statue tells nothing, not a single word, as it dreams of lost sand and the restless spirits therein. Oh, man. Don't miss a single issue. So, any names that we recognize? I don't recognize any names, but I do know that in the back here, is a portfolio by a very young Kevin Nolan. Now, this apparently appeared the very month, or the month after, the very same month as Kevin Nolan's first Marvel work, his first professional comics work, drawing Doctor Strange 57, which is a book that we have read on the TikTok channel and Instagram as well. I should say Instagram as well, because I know a lot of people don't want to mess with TikTok. I understand. I wouldn't be messing with it if I wasn't on it. But you can find the videos on Instagram as well. Daily comic book reviews. Oh man. Oh man. That is just, doesn't get more gorgeous than that, folks. Just does not get more gorgeous than that. And this is right out of the box. Kevin Nolan. Like Kevin Nolan year zero. This is him. He was already this good. My goodness. And here's an ad for the New Mutants. First big X-Men spinoff. First ongoing X-Men spinoff. Is Kazar dead or alive or dead or what? Find out in Kazar 23. Yeah, he ends up in the hospital for a while and then rampaging through New York. Don't ask me why. I read through this run of comics not that long ago. Very interesting run. Readable, which you can't always say for our boy Kazar. And a return to the most profound terror a man can know. I like how a werewolf is the most profound terror a man can... I mean, werewolves are scary, don't get me wrong. If werewolves were real, I wouldn't want anything to do with them. But the most profound terror, that's cashing a lot of checks with that, buddy. You're writing a lot of checks with that, rather. Excuse me. All right, what else we got? Well, let's keep with the theme here and read a very nice-looking comic book, albeit one of a little bit more of a recent vintage. I picked this up for a song not that long ago, which kind of amazing considering this is Brian Hitch. This is a significant run from Brian Hitch. But it's Hawkman, so, what are you going to do? And what I have to say, one of the developments in the last few years that has made me just absolutely thrilled has been seeing Brian Hitch blossom into a real prolific artist. Most artists, especially detail guys, they don't become more prolific as they get older. He has, strangely enough, gotten a lot more prolific. People used to wait months for, the later run of Ultimates. People just assumed it was going to be running behind because he was putting a lot into it. And I honestly, in terms of just drawing ability, he hasn't lost a step. This is still a very, very, very nice looking comic book. I think he's just personally a little bit less uptight in his work methods, and it shows wonders. It really does. I mean, yeah, he's drawn Hawkman, which someone's got to, I suppose. This is what year was this? This is like 2018. So a little earlier than I thought. But, yeah, Robert Venditti, I don't know what they're doing in this. This is the Carter Hall version, of course, because the Alien one is just never used anymore. He's messing around with, he's stealing something or other. The Nautilus of Revealment. And then he's got to fight some... Is this a... Yeah, he's a underwater, or I guess he's rising up from the water, a giant three-eyed monkey. Fun stuff. Yeah, this is fun already. It's doing a good job of getting me on its side. So they're on some sort of archaeological business, generic Tomb Raider type stuff. Munchkin's card game. So he gets out his wings, he flies away, doing something or other. And he's still fighting this guy, the giant three-eyed monkey in the underwater temple. Return the Nautilus or perish. All right, that's, you got to admit, for a Hawkman comic, it's pretty fun. I'm not too proud to admit. I mean, you know, there's a reason I bought it in the first place. I knew it would at least be good to look at. Oh, he goes underwater. That's not a place for Hawkman. You so crazy, Hawkman. That's not a place for you. Oh, wow. Bernard Chang. Don't know anything. I was out. I was like completely out of it this era. I got Brandon Peterson to do the Titans. Oh, that might be worth at least a glance. Reads perfectly. Just him falling. Oh, that's a very interesting Catwoman ad. Oh, they had Joelle Jones writing and illustrating. See, I missed that. I missed that. I need to go back to that one, I think. Like I said, I was just completely, 2008, I was checked out of comics. It happens sometimes. You gotta step away. Oh, so the giant monkey has wings. Oh, so now you're in trouble, Hawkman. Now you're in trouble. Oh, there we go. Snyder, Chung, Jimenez. Well, that's a nice, those are nice looking promo pieces. Classical version of the team here. Man, you know, it took a while, but people finally came around to the Dwayne McDuffie run. Although Cyborg, just never really. I'm old. I'm old. More Joelle Jones. She had a pretty good 2018. Working with Mariko Tamaki. Well, that might be interesting. So he smashes the monkey's glass eye with his mace, which is pretty much his go-to move, is to just smash things with the mace. And he's Hawkman, you know. You don't send him after a problem unless you think it can be solved by smashing it with a mace. Oh, so he's doing the archaeology thing. That makes sense. Oh, and that's Madame Xanadu? In jeans? Oh, my. I don't know how I feel about that. Well, times they are changing. They didn't ask me. Oh, here we go. Here's the show of the hour, folks. I actually read the first few issues of this. I put it down, and I intended to go back, but it's just a very mean-spirited comic book. Like, I didn't expect it to be good, but it's kind of an ugly book. Yeah, with Birkenstocks? Flip-flops? No, man, that's not your father's Madame Xanadu. Oh, that's nice. I mean, of course, it's the... this is why people hate the guy, because you're not just getting the guy, you're getting all these other guys. And they never give up on trying to make all these other guys relevant. And it's just... Oh, man. Well, there's Cutter Hall of Thanagar. People like Thanagarians. They never use the guy. Oh, and here's what you want with your Brian Hitch. These absolutely stunning 2-page spreads. My goodness. And he still got it. He's still got it. I flipped through those Ultimate books he did not that long ago. Hickman isn't really my cup of tea, but they look very nice. They look very nice. No flies on how those books looked. Madame Xanadu in like normal people clothing, it just doesn't seem right. And this is something I want to go back for. Adriana Mello and Gail Simone. Of course. I'll read anything Gail Simone writes. just about anything. I've only disliked a few things she's done, and she's written a lot. Wow, they did a Dark Knight's metal soundtrack? Well, that makes sense. When I read metal, I wrote a very unflattering essay about it because I did not care for that book. And I think I like death metal a little bit more because I think I'd sort of gotten the joke by then, whereas the first metal, I just read the limited series without any of the tie-ins, and it didn't make any sense. But by the time they got to death metal, I think it worked a little better than it wasn't supposed to make sense. You had Wonder Woman with the chainsaw of truth. I liked that. That was fun. Maybe that's the type of thing everyone hates, but I thought it was fun. I still haven't seen that. How have I still not even seen that? Of course, they're still making this show, I think. And I don't watch every new episode. Was there anything to go back and look at? Or they don't always do bullpens, or well, I guess it's just this How to Draw Hawkman. That's what it is. All right, well, that's a good show. We made it through. Oh, we made it through 5. We made it through 5. I made the attempt to do more than 3, so we did 5. And that's a fun bunch of comic books right there. So, tell your friends, help spread the show, spread the link around. Please visit the Patreon. That is how you can show your support for this show. Let me know you want me to make more of this show, that you want me to splurge on a good microphone. We just don't have enough people into it yet to really justify, doing anything like putting episodes up early or anything like that. Maybe we could get there one of these days. I got a podcast with Claire Napier, Udder Madness. It's about Top Cow Comics, Mark Silvestri, Michael Turner, Witchblade, The Darkness, all that fun stuff that you love so much. We're on YouTube as well. I put annotations of videos up. I just put up one for The Darkness not that long ago. For our episode on The Darkness. Check out my daily comic book reviews on TikTok and Instagram. I look at a bunch of different stuff. I have a lot of fun. What else? Check out the Comics Journal. I should have my big essay on Batman Year One up by now, which I'm quite proud of. Anything else? Just have a wonderful day. Take care of yourself. Take care of others. Take care of small children and animals. Be kind above all else. And have a wonderful day.